Alright, so I'm back, and today I'm going to try and knock out the rant of the week that we're doing now. And then I'm also going to try and do my top worst figures, top 10 best figures, and top 10 best Transformers of the year. So, today though, we're going to talk about, we're going to do a rant of the week. I've been getting a lot of people asking me when I'm going to do a video about this, about the... What is it called? Was it Rise of the Beast? Rise of the Beast. And what my thoughts are on the trailer for this movie. A lot of people have asked me, like, hey, when are you going to do the video? And I'm like, why? Well, we want to know your opinion. Again, why? Well, you're a Beast Wars fan. Again, why? I think that hints at what I think about this movie. I don't think it looks good at all. I mean, I'm over the Bayverse. Just 110%. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I could care less about anything the Michael Bay Transformer universe is going to put out. There is no saving grace. Only thing that you can do with it at this point is to give it to someone else to do and reboot the entire franchise. Just give up with it. And quite frankly, I don't even know if I'd watch a rebooted franchise either. I'm out. I'm done. I've got my G1 cartoons. I got my Beast Wars cartoons. I got my Beast Machines cartoons, and Transformers Prime, and all of these have really good story arcs in them with great character development for the most part, and they're all just really enjoyable, and I've just kind of given up on a live-action adaptation of giant robots because everyone has to throw in stupid humans to try and tell a story, so we have to do the same story elements over and 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 over again. And it gets old. It just gets so old. That's why the first 3 Bayverse movies worked well for me, was because you told that human element at the beginning of the first, or in the first movie, and it just kind of dipped lower and lower, and it wasn't like you had to retell what was going on every single time. It was adding to what was already established. But now it's like every movie, they're like, oh, we got to get some new humans in here and start over, and start all of that over. So no, I'm not looking forward to that aspect of it. I'm also not looking forward to the seizure-inducing visual effects. At the end of the day, as far as the Beast Wars part of it goes, I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, they look good and we're excited to see them. I don't think they look good at all. I'm not excited to see it. I don't care. I really don't. I think back of how they tried to put the Beast Wars character into the Kingdom cartoon on Netflix, and I made it halfway through the second episode before I turned it off and gave up on that show forever. I cannot watch it. It's just incoherent garbage to me, and because of that, I'm thinking, Beast Wars needs to be separate from the main G1 continuity. Not the continuity, but the story arc. It has to be a separate story to tell the Beast Wars story properly. And that's just, we're not going to get this at all in this movie. The big key components to Beast Wars that I really like, and it's just like, if they weren't there, I don't think the story arcs would have worked. Any of them for the Beast Wars cartoon. And those are going to be, and so before Beast Wars, but after G1, at some point there was an upgrade. The Autobots that either survived, or new Autobots, and the Decepticons had all sat down and they had a meeting. I'm sure it was probably a really heated debate, and it would have been fun to watch that as just like a one-shot kind of not a movie, but just like an episode, just like a one shot of the debate of, the whole point of G1 was it was an energy crisis. They were trying to fight a war to see who can control all the energy of Cybertron. It's a relatable situation. And so they start having the war, and then they start spreading out through the galaxy, and it just goes on and on and on. Well, in this meeting, they decided that the best way to conserve energy was to downsize. Up until this point, all the robots are either, anywhere from car to planes to tank-sized robots, massive city bots, huge, just massive. And these things are going to take up a lot of energy. So they decided on both sides, we're going to downsize to more of a humanoid size. In the Beast Wars, you can see, like when they're talking to when they're with the proto-humans, that they're around the same size. Yeah, they're bigger, but they're not bigger by much. I mean, they don't dwarf these things. They're like human, like robot, or the Transformers did to humans in G1. They don't dwarf them. A lot of them were about up to here. So they're humanoid size. And the downside helped them conserve energy. And in the process, they also added in the inboard computer so that they can, take their own stats and such like that. And then just upgraded to a sleeker design that also allowed them to take on organic beast forms. There was another upgrade that happens later on. All of this is in storyline, but not shown in the show. But at some point, there was another upgrade where they're able to take on plant forms. And then finally, there was the final upgrade before that we know of, before Megatron conquered Cybertron, was where they were able to put in the scanner into the bodies themselves, so they don't need the stasis pod anymore to scan for a new form, and it would also automatically build it for them. So I don't know if that was a one-shot kind of deal or it was really hard to undo, but that was a critical component, to the story leading into the Beast Wars, is that, like I said, they're smaller, they're sleeker, and they're able to take beast form. And the reason why that's important is that they don't need to take beast form. In general, the Transformers don't. In the show they did, because of the raw energon on Earth. So the only reason why a lot of them took the beast forms was to have that organic shell on the outside so they could stay in beast mode and protect themselves from the energon and then turn into robots and fight for a limited time as robots. It made a reason for the transformation more than just robots in disguise. So in this, they're the same size as the other Transformers, and they don't have an organic outer shell. They just look like robots. Which to me defeats the entire purpose of Optimus Primal. Look back at G1, okay, Grimlock turns into a T-Rex and then turns into a robot. Okay, cool, I can get behind that. But then you get characters like Apeface, who turn from a human robot, type character into a gorilla type character. Basically, you slouch and you switch the head around, and there's no transformation there. And that's exactly what this looks like. It looks like his head transforms, and that's it. And it's like, okay, cool. Cheetor's, bigger than a car, and it's mechanical running around, and there's no purpose to it. It's not. They're not going to stand in a lineup with Beast and hide. So it kills that purpose too. So it's like they don't have the organic shell to protect them from raw energon, so that story element's not there. They're not the right sizes, so that story element's not there. So they just happen to be beast formers that live in this jungle area or whatever, and it's just like it just killed every aspect of anything that I would have wanted to see. I'm down with seeing a live action Beast Wars, but by that it's just gonna be a CGI Beast Wars, just like the live action Lion King. It's just a cartoon, It just looks more realistic than it does, animated. But I would have been totally down with seeing an adaptation of Beast Wars in that format. However, this isn't what I would want to see. It's going to be more of the same thing, and also. While we're on this topic of things, is just remember, people are excited to see the Beast Wars in this. You see Primal, you see Air Razor, you see Cheetor. I think Rhinox is in it for a second too. But let's go back to previous movies. Let's go back to all the way back to the second movie, Revenge of the Fallen. Where in the trailers they teased Devastator. What did we get? We got jumbled mess Devastator that was in 5 minutes of the movie near the end. Transformers 3, Dark of the Moon. They showed off Shockwave and kind of played it off like he's going to be the main villain. I think someone actually said he's the main villain of the movie. He has one line, and he's in about 5 minutes of the whole movie in its entirety. He's barely there. And he's not in charge. He's maybe he's third in command, but probably more like fourth, because you got Sentinel Prime, you have Megatron, you have Starscream, and then you have Shockwave, who just was there, and I think all he said in the entire movie was Prime. And then we go to the next movie, Age of Extinction, where the trailers kept showing the Dinobots. And this is the first time I watched a trailer for one of the Transformers movies, and I just rolled my eyes, because I'm like, they're going to be in the last 5 minutes of the movie. And they were in the last 5 minutes of the movie, and they had no point to the plot whatsoever. You could have replaced them with anything, and it would have done the same purpose of the Dinobots. Same goes with the Galvatron in that movie. And then in the, let's see, what was it? The Last Night, the trailers made it seem like Optimus Prime was going to be a villain for the entire movie. And he was for the last 5 minutes until he looked at Bumblebee and he's like, that's right, I'm a good guy. And that was the end of that. And then going further, a lot of people like the Bumblebee movie. And one of the, the trailers were showing off a lot of the character designs from the Cybertron. Guess what? That was only in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then it went back into more Bay crap. I don't know what you guys are expecting with this movie. I mean, historically, it's showing that these things will probably be in the first 5 minutes of the movie and then get killed off, or last 5 minutes of the movie and do something and get killed off, because they're not there for later movies. It also doesn't make sense that the Autobots are on Earth now, and then they come to Earth in the first Transformers movie. Optimus Prime is one of the people that come down. RC comes down in the second movie, but she's in this movie. So are they just coming and going, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? I mean, so yeah, I don't have hope for this movie. I think it looks bad. I think it's going to be bad. And it's also now officially in that jumbled kind of mess that the Fox's X-Men franchise is in, where you're getting a sequel, prequel, trilogy, whatever, but it doesn't fit perfectly to stories that have already been told. So is it in the same universe? Yes, but is it in the same timeline? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, look, we've got look at the X-Men. It's like we have two different origin stories for Deadpool, and he has completely two different story arcs. You have two different origin stories for Wolverine, and that has two different story arcs. You have two different Sabretooth, two different Xaviers, Cyclopses, Jean, all the main cast. You have two different versions of them in this universe. You have two different angels, which have nothing to do with each other, and they're decades apart from each other. It's just you're sitting there like, is this one plot, or is it like 3 or 4 different plots of people just cramming shit together? And that's exactly what this is. So no, I'm not excited for it. You know, people, I know people are hitting me up and they're probably disappointed that I'm not one of those people that are like, yes, Beast Wars. It's like, no, I don't want giant robotic beast in this show or in this movie when we could have replaced those with anybody. I mean, it sounds like the way the story arc is kind of like, it sounds like it probably would have been better off if these were the Dinobots, as opposed to what we got in last night. Like, if they would have saved the Dinobots from there and put them into this story, maybe it would have been better, and it would have fit better, and I would have been okay with it. Like, oh, okay, Dinobots, cool, finally, let's do the Dinobots. But Beast Wars have their own lore, and it just shits all over their lore, just like in the Kingdom show. It makes no sense to the story, and I know I'm just like, oh, but I want more of the same of Beast Wars, but it's like, that's the stuff that works, though. Those are the stories that work. Look at G1. You know, it has its story arc, and that's why they take the elements of that story and they put them into all these franchises. You know, the same G1 elements are in the Unicron trilogy, in the animated series, in the Prime series, even in the first Bayverse movies. It's like, you know, there's an energy crisis, there's a war that's going on forever. They had to leave Cybertron, and they had to come to Earth for whatever MacGuffin. And then they all are led by Optimus Prime. They have a core crew. They might have more troops laying around somewhere that come in later on. But it's like, they follow these same story elements. But none of these story elements that made the Beast Wars the charming show that it was are present in this movie, from what it looks like. I mean, maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe they are downsized, even though they're the size of semi-trucks. Or maybe they are, you know, they're searching for Beast Wars Megatron so that he doesn't take enough energy to go back in time and launch a war and kill Optimus Prime before he was ever revived, which I don't see how that's going to work out. You know, it's just like, it doesn't seem like it's going to play out the way that it's saying. And then the other thing that really, 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 really pisses me off about this is the fact that, like, they're like, oh, look, we got Peter Cullen back to play Optimus Prime, and Ron Perlman play Primal. And it's like, well, why didn't you get the guy that played Primal in the Beast Wars show? Like, is he too busy, or is he too much money, but Ron Perlman isn't? Like, let's get the guy that played... I mean, at the very least, do that. You know, get the voice actor that played Primal back in the 90s. You know, that would have been awesome to see again. You know, that would have gotten me... You know, if he would have just, like, stood up at one point and just, like, said, like, well, that's just Prime, and an Optimus runs by, I would have been, like, at the very least, I would have gotten a chuckle out of that. I would have been like, all right. Especially if it was the same voice. Like, I would have been like, all right. Okay. They're going to take more of a tongue-in-cheek aspect to it. All right. You know, maybe I'd be interested in seeing that. But as it is, no. I'm 0 out of 10 if I'm going to give it a score. I mean, I only watched it because people were asking me what my thoughts were on it. Like, otherwise I would not have watched the trailer. I'm not going to go see it in theaters. I really don't think I would. Unless I see a trailer in between now and then for it that's like, oh, hey, you know what? Maybe that is interesting. You know, Scourge is a cool villain. Don't get me wrong, from the RID series. But here, big but to that is we just did the Nemesis Prime story arc. And Scourge was just... essentially Nemesis Prime before Nemesis Prime was named. So it's like, why are we doing a similar story arc? You know, it's like there's so many other characters we could have used. I don't know. It's just, I got nothing for you guys. I mean, I know that's kind of a disappointment, but I have zero faith in this series at this point. So yeah, that's all I got.